We will now have our plenary panel inside the city government. This panel will explore how India's city governments function and the role of data, technology, and processes in transforming governance to better serve citizens. For this panel, we have Poornima Jayaraj, Senior Researcher at Citizen Consumer and Civic Action Group, Chennai. Poornima is an architect and environmental planner with more than 17 years of experience. She specializes in policy driven research on energy, climate, and urban sustainability. She also holds a doctorate in environmental planning. R Vachana, Associate Director, Policy at Janaagraha and Jana Urban Space Foundation. Vachana leads urban governance research and systemic policy engagements. She anchored India's flagship annual survey of India's city systems and has collaborated with institutions like Niti Aayog and the 15th Finance Commission. Welcome, Vachana. Pratiksha Deolekar, Program Manager at Praja. Pratiksha drives urban reform and capacity building initiatives across the northeast and southern India. She has a background in political science and she transitioned from education to public policy, focusing on governance and social impact. Welcome, Pratiksha. Next, we have Subham Chattopadhyay, Product Manager at eGov. Shubham designs digital platforms for public service delivery, ensuring accessibility and trust at scale. His work supports essential services and citizen engagement across India and emerging markets. Hello, welcome. And we have J. Kayalvizhi, Councillor of Ward 179 in Chennai. She is a nurse-trained politician dedicated to social service in education and health. After working abroad, she returned to India in 2006 to focus on community welfare and civic leadership. I now invite Meera K, our co-founder and trustee, to anchor this panel.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. So let me start this. This panel is meant to be a very slightly introductory, but also sets the context for the rest of the day. We really something that we need to understand in terms of how the system works, right? For us, we engage with the system only when things go wrong. There is a complaint, we are troubled by a lot of garbage lying around, or there are potholes in our street. Then we go and complain, or when we have certain services, we want a birth certificate, we want to get a patta. Those kind of issues is when we deal with the system, with the city government. But our cities are very, very large. We are talking about millions, right? So 6 million, 8 million, I think Greater Chennai is 9 million, Bangalore is some 12, 13, 14 million, we don't know. Mumbai is probably around 18 million. These are huge, like almost countries, right? So the system it's not something very, very simple. There is a lot of complexity, there are lots of, things happening in different various agencies. How do they function? How are they connected together? And how do we engage with them? So that's what we will look at today. So I first invite Vachana to give us a little bit of context. What are the different departments, the agency, the parastatals, the elected city council? How do they all function? How are they connected?
Thanks, Meera. It's a pleasure to actually meet all of you working in the space of civic citizenship, active citizenship essentially, trying to improve quality of life in our own ways in our cities, right? So I think coming to Meera's question, I think it is probably useful to start today's conversation starting with the context of the constitutional paradox that exists in India. So 74th Constitutional Amendment Act did recognize urban local governments as institutions of self-government. So it was envisioned to be a third tier of government. However, we still have Schedule 7, in which local governance is a state subject, which means essentially how cities are governed and managed in India. The ability of a city to deliver good quality of life to its citizens are determined by state governments. And because local governance, urban local governments, including rural local governance, is a state subject, there is a lot of variation that you would see across states in India as to how cities are governed. For example, in Chennai, you have indirectly elected mayor with 5-year tenure. In Bangalore, you have a your mayoral tenure is 2.5 years. It's another thing that for the last 5 years we haven't had a mayor. In Bhopal, it is directly elected mayor with 5-year tenure. Right? And there is also a lot of variation in the extent to which powers have been devolved to urban local governments as well. Right? Now, when the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act came into play in 1993, the state governments did introduce either new Municipal Corporations Act in line with the framework laid down by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, or they amended the existing act. However, there was no change. Recognition of urban local governments was not made even in the Town and Country Planning Act in the respective states. You will not see a mention of urban local governments in any of the Town and Country Planning Acts in India except Kerala, which is again only just 1 or 2 mentions. Right? Similarly, there are several civic agencies and parastatals which actually deliver services in cities, and none of the acts which give legitimacy to their existence also mention the role of urban local governments. So essentially what this has resulted in is that a city is basically a myriad of agencies, including urban local government, including various civic agencies, state departments with splintered mandates. There is no one accountable authority for the city, right? Which means for us as citizens, while urban flooding is one visible problem that we are experiencing, urban flooding as a life cycle of problem is actually resting with multiple departments, multiple civic agencies to be resolved for. So, and that's very fundamental to the discussion we are having today. Even when we discuss about tech, digitization, process, citizen engagement, the fragmentation and governance, there is no single authority that is accountable for the city, is very critical problem that need to be addressed.
Thank you, Vachana. So let's take that particular problem you're talking about, where you see stagnant water or something is flooded. How do we really know who to complain to, whose jurisdiction? What are the processes? What are the reporting channels? So Pratiksha, maybe you can come in from, whether it's Bombay or other cities. What do you see happening? How do people actually, engage with the system, raise this issue, and try to get those grievances addressed?
Sure. So thank you so much. First of all, with respect to grievances, what we have realized in Mumbai is it's one of the best systems all over the country. We studied in the Urban Governance Index that there are various ways through which the citizens can complain. So one of them is 1916, which is a portal, which is a complaint number, which is again a small number which citizens can remember. The other way is to through the MyBMC app, through their WhatsApp chatbot, and also their website. So there are multiple avenues where the citizens can complain. If I take an example of myself as a citizen, I have called 1916 multiple times. For example, I'll just give real life scenarios so that you can relate to it and understand that how it helps a citizen. I was in office and it started raining heavily in like around 10-11 a.m. and water logging started in our office area. So I just called 1916 to ask if, what is the situation with respect to the alert. And they said that the IMDb alert was yellow in the morning, but now all of a sudden it's turned red. So you should take a call and, we let all the employees go because the water logging was just rising. What happened over here was that it was easier for me to quickly call and take a decision. So similarly, for citizens in general, what we see is that having multiple avenues to complain becomes easier for them because they can choose from where they want to complain, and the data is managed in a centralized system. So if I'm complaining from 1916 or from the MyBMC chatbot or any app or the website, it's going to the administration in a centralized repository from where they are addressing these issues and directing it to different departments. So that is one of the ways that we have seen that the complaint system in BMC has worked really well. In other cities, what we have seen is that the complaint number is like 10 digit, which is very difficult for a citizen to remember. Some of the websites don't even work. There are some websites, for example, Gorakhpur, which is one of the largest municipal corporations after Lucknow in UP. They don't even have a tab called grievances or complain on their website. So it's just contact us and a free text format chat. You can put whatever complaint or any suggestion you want. But how will I understand as a citizen that I should put my complaint over there? So it's very confusing for citizens when these clear formats are not available. So Mumbai is one of the best cases for sure, but we can obviously take examples from multiple cities across the country.
Thank you. In this case, it's clear this particular issue was the responsibility of the corporation, right? But it could have been a broken pipeline which would have come under the water board. So how does this whole jurisdiction play? And Vachana, maybe you want to just comment on that and like internally what happens if, let's say, the complaint goes into the system, then how does that issue flow? Because finally, at the ward level, your engineer has to come and check and figure out if it is within their scope or not and so on, right? How does that happen?
I actually don't think it happens really well in most of the cities because a lot of these civic services, if it is delivered completely under the ownership of the urban local government, then this is fine. This process of complaint ticket being raised and verification, field engineer being allotted to look at it at the ward also happens well. But when there is, like for example, the example you just took about a water supply board, if a citizen registered that complaint through urban local government, it is not, the system is not integrated in such a way where it gets automatically informed, say at the respective civic agency, and therefore the action happens. And most often what happens is as citizens, we just reach out to councillors, and most often cases it is actually MLA because we really don't, unfortunately, delineate these responsibilities well. As citizens also, we sort of, validate an MLA's performance through civic service delivery and not really through legislative, contributions in legislative process. So that's one challenge, and probably Subham would be able to articulate more into this. So even when we talk about tech and digitization as a solution to all the challenges that we are facing in city, unless this fragmentation is resolved, unless digitization is or technological intervention is also end-to-end, actually we are not going to resolve the problem. The fragmentation only will get magnified, and sometimes I would think even as citizens, our frustration of handling this issue will also get paced up, right? Because at one point this chain will break. So, and that's what I would actually like to reiterate in the session, even as we stress a lot on tech, AI, absolutely it's very, very important. It can play it's a huge enabling tool, but in the absence of governance not being taken care, fragmentation not being resolved, I don't think we are actually solving for the problem ultimately. Yeah.
Thanks. Shubham, you want to comment on, are there examples from different cities? Are there SLAs? The way, like she's talking about, do they even integrate with other departments at all?
So, I would first touch upon a fundamental problem that we've observed, which is modes and modalities of access to the government.
Closer.
Right. So, in terms of modes and modalities, every time we think that we'll include for yet another app, yet another platform, right, and then it becomes restricted to that yet another platform. So, if you're calling 1916, for example, a complaint that is sourced through 1916, what happens to it often is prioritized on the basis of whether it came from 1916. Grievances need to be more baked into the fabric of service delivery so that service delivery becomes more proactive. And I'll tell you how. So in the state of Andhra, what we did, was obviously in some cases the responsibility of delivering water to the citizen is with the municipality. In some cases it's the water board, right? To me as a citizen, I don't really care. I need water in my tap, and I need in Odisha, for example, it even magnifies further. So in the city of Puri, I need drinkable water in my tap. So that, in terms of a social contract, is what is established by the government. Then, as the citizen then raises a complaint, who it goes to is of no concern to the citizen. Who's coming to solve for it may be of concern. Ideally, it should not even have gone to that point, right? So what we've observed with Andhra is that when it goes right down to the engineer, at the end of the day, there's someone looking at what has happened. And that is driving planning, capacity planning for the government. That is then driving how do you plan for water 10 months later, or let's say the same time next year. That really helps, right? Because then you are aware of where the problem was, how was it solved, as well as you know what to do in the future for, so that it never occurs in the
So
first
understanding
place.
the data and
Right.
finding those patterns, saying how many complaints about water are there, what do we
Right.
need to do.
Right.
Is that happening anywhere at all?
So, yes, and in some aspects it is. In terms of capacity distribution, it is. So, for the state of Punjab, for example, we realized after looking at the data that the highest source of complaints is not the web app, not the phone app. So, making those more usable may not even work. Often, citizens expect a human in the loop somewhere. So, it is calling a helpline and then ensuring, so traceability. Why do I have to log in to see what happened to my complaint? Why can it be more proactive? That was sort of solved for over there, right? But the next steps then become, how do you ultimately evolve this into an operational decision that continues, right? And how do you evolve, let's say, the Punjab Municipal Act to be able to cater to it? How do you evolve the Andhra Municipal Acts to be able to cater to it? So it's a little bit of short term, what are you solving for? How are you restricting access barriers, right? And in the longer term, how do you make sense of that longitudinal data to for actual change to be effective? Digitization helps in this, but digitization cannot be at the forefront. It is not the silver bullet that solves for it. Right? It is belief in that the system will work that solves for it, and a few proactive people somewhere in the loop as well.
Yeah. I think many of our city governments have a tendency to create an app. If you go to Google Play Store, or you will find and just search for grievance or complaint app, there are like every other city is got like, and there are multiple. In Bangalore, I don't know, there are some 4 or 5 apps. Which one?
So 5, I've recently tried, very recently, it was 5. 3 were non-functional, and the state PGR is actually effective. There's CP Grams, there's state Karnataka PGRS, there's Bangalore PGRS. There was an app which was created just for reporting potholes. There was an app that was created just for reporting that you have pedestrian
The
walkways
street,
and
yeah.
the garbage.
Yeah, Fix
there
My
were
Street,
5
Sahaya,
at hand.
all of those.
And all of them had the same option, and all of them were different channels of reporting. Right? So you've included for access, but you haven't solved for the problem itself. The garbage is still dumped on the street. So that is where all of this needs to come together. It cannot be, you cannot confuse the citizen, right? What happened in Bangalore, sorry, since you touched upon Bangalore, when we spoke to the average Joe, average citizen, they're like, when I go to a post office, they give me complex forms. I cannot fill forms. You're giving me an app where I am having to fill forms. I'd rather call a number and speak to a person, right? And when that is not resolved, then I go to my local leader or my local councillor, who then helps advocate for it. Why do I have to go through 7 channels to solve for something? Yeah. Right? Why cannot there just be one?
Yeah, so this is one of the reason you will find like on Twitter, when it used to be Facebook, now it's more common on Twitter that people escalate and they're tagging their MLA, they're tagging commissioner, they're tagging everybody. And that works, by the way. So escalating on Twitter is largely, maybe it is because it's publicly visible, I don't know what, in many cases it does. But obviously limits it to who can access and who knows what handles to tag and all. But
Since
just
we talked about Twitter also, so we talked about stormwater drains earlier. There is this one shopkeeper who's sitting somewhere in Mumbai, and every year they go at the time of monsoon, say that my road is full of water. There's nobody able to access my shop, and he complains on Twitter every year. So this at around the same time. So if we were looking at longitudinal data, and if we, let's say, data came together to say stormwater drains haven't been desilted, or the drainage hasn't been desilted, and this person is complaining year on year, then the fourth year, you better proactively solve for it.
Correct.
That's where grievances need to lead to.
Right. So you talked about human in the loop, and that brings me to Ms. Kayalvizhi. And finally, people like to hear somebody's voice, and especially if it is somebody who is living in their neighborhood, that's the first person people would rather call and say, this is happening. So ma'am, like, what has been your experience when people complain to you? How are you able to get that fixed? It may be at the ward level, it may be maybe another ward the water is coming from. How do you manage this, and what's been your experience?
Yeah, vanakkam to all. I think most of you all knows me very well because I used to participate in welfare association meeting at zone level. Also, I used to have the WhatsApp group name called 179 Public Forum. And everyone knows in that group there are 500 members are there. So actually I am very much people friendly counselor. And on behalf of public, I used to raise my voice in the ribbon building in the council meet. Jayaraman brother knows about this, how I used to fight for the public, what to do and what not to do. So during the monsoon, I used to go around the area. I used to check whether it is desilted properly or not. So along with corporation officials, I used to go. Not only, I never used to have any assistants or anybody. I only myself will go as a person and I'll inspect everywhere. Along with officials, I'll make sure that the drains are clear. If there is anything problem they are facing, they used to call me. So immediately I'll go into the person, I'll inspect there and I'll rectify the issue there. Yeah.
Thank you. So Subham also talked about the data and longitudinal studies, and at Praja, Pratiksha, you have also looked at, taken a step back and look at all the issues data, complaints data. So what have been your findings, and has that informed anything in policy at all? I mean, any city, any examples?
So yeah, with respect to data in Mumbai, we launched a lot of white papers. So the range of white papers are on civic issues, education, health and crime as well. So specifically with respect to civic issues, we have seen that the number of complaints are rising, but also the addressing days, the number of days for addressing those complaints are reducing, but it also depends on service to service. For example, if we take the example of stormwater drains, now these are, which have to be addressed at the ward level. So in Mumbai, there are 24 administrative wards, and the main budget allocates some budget to the wards. Okay, so as citizens, you should also understand how to read your city budgets. It's very important to understand that as citizens, because you need to know what is allocated to your ward. So what happened in one of the papers we launched in Mumbai was we studied the ward budgets, which has not been done so far. At the ward level, we found out that the stormwater drainage percentage of the wards that were, the percentage of the ward budget that they were spending on stormwater drainage was 15%. And the number of the percentage of utilization of the budget was 400, 326, over the years. So the percentage of utilization is very high, which means that the work is happening at the ward level. It's not happening at the major city level. So what they do is, after, obviously the percentage allocation is very low. So then they'll depend on, MLA fund, MP fund, or then they'll ask the BMC or the state, to help them out. Also, interestingly, with the example I gave earlier of the waterlogging in my area, in the office area. So obviously we left when we understood that it's a red alert. And when I went to my home, which is the eastern suburb area, there was no waterlogging at all. So in our ward budget, so it was interesting for me as a citizen, because in our ward budget, we understood that the city spent on stormwater drains in the eastern suburbs, and they hadn't spent in that particular financial year in the other wards. So that's why the other wards were having these issues, whereas the eastern suburbs did not have these issues. So this is very interesting to understand as a citizen also, that how different kinds of budget allotments are happening.
Thanks. So let's move on to budget in that case. But before, budget announcements and all that, first is to really figure out what the needs of the city are in that particular year, right? Whether you need to focus on preventing flooding, whether you need to prioritize like traffic issues and therefore you need flyovers. How are these needs assessed? And I'd like Poornima to come in on, whatever example, and saying what do people really need? What are the issues they're facing and what are the solutions which are best required, to address those issues? It's somehow it feels like we are only at the receiving end of these decisions. They suddenly say, traffic is bad, we'll build a flyover, or we will widen this road, or we will fix potholes. What is really what people need? Maybe what they need in that ward is more toilets. Maybe they need, their schools or Anganwadis to be improved. Who asks them, and how do you even assess these issues?
Yeah, thank you, Meera. So I thank everyone to be part of the panel here. So this way. So yes. So to begin with, I would like to state a case of the work which we have worked. So this is a part of Chennai, where the north part of the Chennai. And this particular region is always in the limelight. Okay, so 8 years before, when I started my research, the same issues was very common over there. And even a year before, when we started our work in the north part of the Chennai, the same issues were still persistent over there. So this particular work that we had was to assess the needs of that particular community. So it was across around 7 sectors, ranging from water supply to sanitation. It was the public health, education, environment, and was like almost around 7 sectors needs to be assessed. The first thing which we noticed is the people are the data providers over there. That means for ages they have been giving the data for whoever approached that particular community for a study. And more than Google or any app or portal, these people are much updated with exactly all the data. So what happens is 3 issues that we, it was not easy approach for, us to, immediately start our work over there. Because the first thing is they had this participatory fatigue, because they were part of, every surveys, and when they are not able to, see any kind of an outcome, any kind of effective outcome, they had this. Why? There was a question. Why? What kind of, work are you doing? Do and go outside. So this was the initial kind of response we received. Second was there was a social distrust with them. So that means they did not trust anyone, be it a government, a bureaucrat, or be it authoritative, or be it a civic society or researcher, whoever. They almost had this social distrust with them. So making a study in such a sensitive area was very difficult. Third, they withdraw. So one thing withdraw is because they did not have any kind of a belief. Any kind of a community needs to have a sense of belief first. So when that kind of a place, when we approached them, they were, it took almost 6 to 7 months for us to, assess that particular sector-wise needs and things. So we have to establish first, a social trust. Then we took over the projects. So in that side, what happens is the needs are across all the sectors. The first thing is, as ma'am said, it was like they are at the end of the, the receiving end of any kind of a decision, not a part of it. These people are not aware much. There are many people who are not much aware, only they know the numbers over there. So this much has been spent over there, for a budget has been allotted over there, but what are these figures about? How are they going to get benefit out of it? They're highly unaware. And another thing is, see, every city has its own quality life and, a diverse culture and a potential to function. So in that case, what happens, this particular example, like any sectors which we wanted to work, when we started with education as a basic sector, there was a priority which was given. So more than I take a degree over there and get educated and then I go for the work, this particular area is more of an industrial hub over there. So I could, income I generate, whatever, for my own growth or the family. So this was the mental way of the people dealing there. So what happens is they're almost, we felt that we need to make them aware of what are the, how the process will work for them. So there is always a disconnect which we found is from the data which we collect, then a coordination is important thing, then comes the decision making, and then they could see whether an effective outcome could be placed or not. So to make them aware of all these process was a high task, and prioritizing is a basic essential ones.
Right.
Any numbers of needs were there, but ultimately after we report the recommendation, how are we going to coordinate with the government over here,
Officials,
the departments over there? Another problem is, see, we are very persistent in doing the coordination also, but what happens over a period of time, there's a change in the government. So we have to start again from the
So that
start.
institutional memory is not there, because communities know everything, but every time term ends or not, more often you will see officials getting transferred in and out. So they have to be educated on what the issues are and etc. So in your case, it was, as an organization, it was like an external intervention. You are trying to support the community. But if any neighborhood wants to actually engage, like whether it's participatory budgeting or giving those inputs, so Shubham, maybe if you would like to come with some examples on how citizens can engage, give inputs. Are there tools, any examples around India, like very cities where people are actually able to give those inputs?
So CP Grams tried that, and you'll hear that how do you engage with it? How do you? So there are two aspects to this question, that I as a citizen should know how I engage, and the other is that that the government must also be receptive to this engagement as well, right? So how do I engage? I think information outreach and civic education are core parts to it, and this we've realized in a couple of states at least can usually be driven by civil society organizations, especially if they're women-led, right? So the cleaning up of garbage past the nation was often, and in the state of Odisha, Andhra, we've seen recent examples from Kerala as well. So if women-led organizations take up a certain cause, then it is going to lead to education at the most ground level. It is going to lead to that. So that's one way of it. And second is that there are massive available mediums of information outreach that are unutilized. And again, going back to the state of case of garbage, the most frequent information refresh that happens is when the garbage van comes. Right? So if there's a complaint solution and the garbage van is announcing that there's a complaint solution, reach out and it will be solved for, people have massive recall of that. Right? Yeah. I think in the state of Maharashtra, incidentally, people have started dancing to at their weddings to the garbage van's tunes. It has such massive recall as one. Second thing is that Akashwani is still a utilized medium, and CP Grams use that quite effectively. Every morning there is announcements that you complained, and it will reach the Prime Minister's office and then flow down. Right? Third is that the wards, something that we've been working with Praja as a white paper, for example, is that how do we effectively utilize the platform that ward sabhas provide to sort of bring attention to prioritization of issues that she talked about.
Right. So that brings me to, let's say, in ward sabhas or even ward committees, if certain these inputs from the community are taken and there's actually a project that deserves to be funded. So Vachana, can you explain how that the decisions flow through the system? How does those inputs get translated into budget allocations? How does that get projectized, get into projects, and then you have the job codes and it gets tendered, then it gets into a work order. That process, if we can understand, and the reason why, like Shubham said, it's not important for everybody to understand. For a lay person, it's about, I have an issue, it needs to be fixed. But it's important here, as active citizens, all of us understand, because we need to see which direction the changes should happen, what we should be asking for to fix the system.
Yeah, so essentially when, wherever ward committees are functional, that is the meetings actually happen and what level prioritization, essentially list of projects and priorities of a ward are prepared, and it flows back from the councillor through the ward committee secretary to the city corporation. I'm basing this mostly based on our experience in Bangalore, but I'm sure more or less this is the process, especially in larger cities. And then at the city corporation level, essentially through the council, it's further prioritized, because everything that's been given by the citizens or prioritized by the ward at the city level cannot be accounted, because budget at the end of the day is a matter of trade-off, right? You have to prioritize based on the constraints of financial resources that is available to the city. One problem we'll have to address here is that what today happens is the city does not undertake participatory process to identify a shelf of implementable projects. So what basically happens is, there's a joke I'm sure a lot of you would have heard in the system, that in the budgeting process itself, you basically every year on year, you add like some 10%, 15%, and the budget for the next year is ready. So there is no real, practice
Thought that goes into it.
Yeah, so that's there. And secondly, as citizens, we do not get to know. See, and we have in Janaagraha, we have had the opportunity to collaborate with the then BBMP, which is now the Greater Bengaluru Authority, for participatory budgeting. Such initiatives have happened in Pune, in Thiruvananthapuram, etc. But if, as a citizen, I give my input, I actually wouldn't know whether my input has been taken or not. So just like how Subham spoke about traceability, the visibility is also a matter which probably tech data digitization could address. And the third thing is to enable participation and to enable citizens to actually give their inputs. It's really important for citizens to have accessible information. So when we say you give budget, first of all, what level budgets are not made available by any city corporation, by any ULG in India. And how it's made available also matters. It's made available in PDF form. How, as citizens, will we be able to even understand to my ward what is coming in, right? Simplifying the information, making the information actionable, accessible is important. So I just wanted to specify that. And now coming back to the project cycle, essentially if the project then is getting decided, then it's being decided to go ahead with, it essentially needs to be budgeted in. Only then can the project be implemented on the ground. Then essentially it is tendered out, then which in a lot of cases it is an online process now. It's tendered out, and the contractor, whoever is onboarded, and then a job code is assigned, and the project is due for execution essentially. What happens is that ideally by law in most cases, ward committees would have a role in monitoring these projects, so that we also ensure that these are going as per timelines, as per quality standards. Unfortunately, ward committees are not as much strengthened, empowered in most of the cities, so that's another problem. And now the project execution might happen, and that's a problem across cities in India. We just focus on building stuff. Nobody cares about maintaining this. So actually having allocations to ensure that the projects that we build, infrastructure that we build, is also maintained. And financing for that is another important component, which unfortunately is often missing.
Thank you. So once the work order is issued, and I'd like Pratiksha and Poornima to just come in on how, as citizens, we can track it. It's there. Many cities do have the system. You can see the work order. Unfortunately, whenever I've seen it, like a lot of information is missing. But let's say the work order is out there. How do you go on the ground and see, okay, they've actually laid this road. They've laid it as per the thickness specified, as per the density they're supposed to. Because otherwise, in like the next rain, it's going to, get washed away literally. So what can we as citizens do? If both of you could come in, yeah.
So, unfortunately, there are no systems as such to actually see what kind of work has actually been done. With respect to work orders, in Mumbai, there is a works committee. Now, the elections have happened in Mumbai after almost 4 years. So, what that committee does, it deliberates on various works, and there are minutes of the meeting which are available to the public online. So one good thing about Mumbai Municipal Corporation is that the minutes of the meeting, the agenda of the meetings that happen, they are all available online. There are live proceedings also in some cases. and it's open to public also in some cases. Obviously, you'll have to take necessary permissions for that. But unfortunately, minutes and agenda hardly, a citizen thinks of reading or going through. So what we do as Praja is we try to engage with youth through various ways. One of them is, organizing a national youth level festival where they are acting as a mayor, they are acting as a standing committee chairperson or a finance committee chairperson, and they are articulating things. The other way is also through workshops that we conduct with various colleges, because what we have understood in our previous experiences, creating public forums, they are not long lasting, because no citizen
Not
wants to
sustainable, yeah.
give their weekends for these kind of forums.
Takes a lot
So
of effort.
we try to mitigate that through engaging with youth largely. So creating a huge youth network who are updated with this kind of information is one of the ways that we have tried.
Thank you. So in the case of Bangalore, of course, we've seen work orders are available publicly, and we've seen all the information out there in the system, and all of this actually is also available on Open City. So please do go check it out. All the work orders for some 13 to 15 years almost we have, so you can actually correlate it to what is happening by ward and look at what's happening in your street as well. So Poornima, what about Chennai? How would is there a way that people can see what can they?
I am not much aware of exactly how it's been put in the portals or webs and things. But what we do in our work is we try to make an outreach program. So for say we have this Tamil Nadu solar policy which has come, but still people are unaware of what exactly it is. They always think it's a cost. I'm ready to pay 7,000 as an electricity bill, but paying 1 lakh and investing on that, it becomes a little, on a higher scale. So for which we conduct outreach program at, the Residential Welfare Association meets, so that this way of engaging makes them that the benefits we could, give them. Yes.
Right.
So that's one way.
Thank you. And Kayalvizhi ma'am, what about your experience? So when work is going on, how do you track it? How do you how can citizens come and see it? Do you engage? Do you have a ward committee that all of you go and check it out and engage with people?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I used to attend every day one association meeting, and I used to go to the community because I'm having this 2 coastal areas. So for them, they don't have an association. They have the panchayat system. Other than that, we have almost 212 streets. So I kept each one street, one volunteers. So whatever happening in that street, whatever the infrastructure they need, whatever the problem they are facing, so that person will bring it to my knowledge. So I will go in person along with the area engineer for an inspection. So then we will make an estimation, we'll pass through ward committee, and then we'll give for tender, the contractor will come, and the work will be get implemented. So the people will be happy.
Thank you. So that's interesting, this level of decentralization, because each street has so many issues as well. And one, of course, is this reactive, addressing all of these issues, but also proactively looking at what the neighborhood needs for the next to make it, better, livable, walkable, resilient, etc. for the next 10 years, 20 years for the future, right? So I actually have more questions, but maybe in the interest of time, just open it up to some questions here as well. Maybe we can take like 2 or 3 questions.
And also, being as a women councillor, I do meet a lot of challenges to fulfill the public needs, obviously. But still, I broke everything and I'll do for the public. The thing is, I'll go according to the government policy. It is not that against the government policy. I'll go to the appropriate officials to fulfill the public needs. I think most of the people you may know about me, and the better example, Kamachi Patime says about me, and Mrs. Priya from Adyar Shastri Nagar, and Priya Rajshekar from Kalakshetra Colony, and Shastri Nagar Babu sir. And most of of you all know, but I don't know your names. When I came here, most of them have come. And madam, eppadi irkeenga, nalla irkingla? Really, we are happy to receive you, happy to see you. Neenga enga ward councillor varakudada? Really, andha madri kekkumbodhu really I am so happy to hear this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I think that's a great compliment.
Thank you.
So we can open up the, some questions. Yeah, we just go around with the mic.
The grievance mechanism, as you said, sir, when we sent a petition for the Prime Minister, see, we are trying for a lot of railway issues. So when we take up with the CP Grams, the railway is not responding. We take it up with the Prime Minister office also. But that is also again getting forward, and there is no kind of acknowledgement from the Prime Minister office. Say there should be some kind of official deputed for some railway projects or like that. So again it is getting transferred to the again local railway authority. Again it comes down same to the Southern Railway. So in this way, if it is going to working, so what is the tracking of that Prime Minister office grievance?
I think it's also, maybe we'll take a couple of two more questions and then we can come back to this. So Shubham, do you want to talk about CP Grams? Just explain, like, for people who have not used it, maybe.
Okay. So, and I completely acknowledge what you're saying, right? This is a problem to solve for eventually, right? But CP Grams, the way that it is structured right now is that it's an intake mechanism. So like I said, and I talked about it, tech is usually 2% of the problem. What tech will solve for is that when you raise the complaint, it will be acknowledged. Now, the way that it gets resolved eventually is twofold. Either there is an actionable outcome that can immediately be addressed, it may need a policy change, or it may need intervention from a lot of local people. So what CP Grams does is assign it a priority and assign it to lower levels. Right? And I agree that it gets lost in the process, which is why there's CP Grams 2.0, which is coming, where the government is trying to build a more cohesive system which is interoperable right now. Right? So that is my limited knowledge answer to you. For your specific issue, maybe there would be a better nodal officer who would be able to address it.
Just have this question and that question together.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe probably it's a very hypothetical. Basically, I am representing an association, resident association here, Godrej Association. See, we were talking about this work allotment, things like that, and the due is given to the local board. So suppose we find mostly we observe that the work order is given, it is in the public domain, but most of the things there are so many deviations are there or it is not carried out. So under that circumstances, do the citizens or a group of citizens or an association, do you have a right to challenge this work order take it legally? Can we challenge this? Is there any example? I mean, there are certain public interest litigation is filed saying that this particular work has not been done, because now we are in India, we know how the system works, how the government works. Most of the things do not get translated. The work order is there, it doesn't get translated into the work. So can we take that recourse?
Yeah, I think this brings is an issue of thoughts, and maybe Ashwin can add more. I think in India we don't have it. If I break my leg because of a pothole, I can't sue the government, right? But Vachana, you want to come in a little bit on this, and maybe the next question also we can take in parallel.
I would like to explain it this one. Sir, actually, the councillor and elected representative work as a bridge to the public and to the government. So if you have any, like, in your area problem or whatever the problem which you are facing, as an association, you can very well forward a letter to the councillor so that the councillor can decide and they can come and inspect along with the concerned department officials, and then they can take it to the council and they can implement that work as soon as possible. So the local body, the local governing body, whoever it may be, they can come and contact and the work will be done as soon as possible. நடைமுறையில் நடக்கும் சார், கண்டிப்பாக நடக்கும். என்னோட வார்டில் நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்களான்னா everybody, everyone, each and everyone used to.
Just telling what I felt. Contractual issues are there. Most of the councillors are having binamis to execute the work, and we have a poor party.
Okay.
Poor party, usually councillors
All right, okay.
Yeah, no, that. Yeah, well, let's just get the next question.
வணக்கம், என் பேர் சென்னி கிருஷ்ணன், வார்டு 101 ஷனா நகர்லேருந்து வந்திருக்கேன். ஏரியா சபா மீட்டிங், வார்டு சபா மீட்டிங், அதில் எங்களுக்கு வந்து இன்விடேஷனே வர்றது கிடையாது கவுன்சிலர்கிட்டேருந்து. இந்த மாதிரி நடக்குதுன்றது நாங்கள் அடுத்த நாள் நியூஸ் பேப்பரை பார்க்கும்போது தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறோம். இந்த கொஸ்டின் கேட்குறேன் கவுன்சிலர் மேடம்க்கு, அது என்ன நடக்குது, எந்த ஃப்ரீக்குவென்சியில் நடக்குது, நாங்கள் வந்து எப்படி அதில் பங்கு எடுக்கலாம்? ஏன்னா நீங்கள் நான் உங்களுடைய வெப்சைட் உங்கள் இதில் போய் பார்த்தேன், 35 லட்சம் வார்டு கவுன்சிலர் ஃபண்டுன்னு இருக்குன்னு. எனக்கு இது வரைக்கும் தெரியாது. ரைட், எனக்கு வந்து இட்ஸ் பீன் 60 lakhs ஓகே. ஸோ அது எப்படி, ரெண்டு கேள்வி. ஒன்று, ஏரியா சபா மீட்டிங்கில் நாங்கள் எப்படி கலந்துக்கலாம், அது எவ்வளோ, எந்த ஃப்ரீக்குவென்சியில் நடக்குது, ஒரு வார்டில் ஏரியா வந்து இஸ் பார்ட் ஆஃப் அ வார்டா, அது எனக்கு எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணுங்கள். ரெண்டாவது கேள்வி வந்து, இந்த மாதிரி 35 லட்சம் 60 லட்சம் அது வந்து வருஷத்துக்கு ஒரு முறையா, அதில் எப்படி அந்த செலவாயிருக்கு, என்னென்ன ப்ராஜெக்ட், அது நாங்கள் எப்படி தெரிஞ்சுக்கலாம்? ஆர்டிஐ போட்டு தான் தெரிஞ்சுக்கணுமா? இது ரெண்டு கேள்வி நான் கேட்க விரும்புகிறேன்.
Thanks. We'll just take the last question as well because we are running out of time. I think in the next session, networking, there a lot of these things can also be addressed. And regarding the WhatsApp, we should also speak to, I think Charu is here from Voice of People. They will be talking about the whole concept of engaging with ward committees and WhatsApps. So please do be part of that session in the afternoon as well.
Thank you. So someone was mentioning that we need to understand about the budget allocated for the public infrastructure development, right? So how we as a citizen or a resident can approach the urban local body to view it? So are we allowed? So what response we will be getting from the government? One. Second, I want to support Ms. Poornima's thought. She was mentioning that there comes a social distress and disconnect is happening. I have experienced in my locality where I have been involved in constructing a stormwater drain with the help of group of volunteers, where people were ignorant about that we didn't have stormwater drain. Then we group of volunteers brought that awareness and we submitted petitions to the interdepartments or line departments. But at one point of time, the social distress comes because of the lack of recognition from the government side of the urban local body that they are not taking the decision immediately. So a gap is happening, social distrust is developing, and then finally what happens, a disconnect happens. And then when we have 100 people in the beginning, then it comes to 2 or 3.
Got it.
So how to address this? And luckily in our apartment we had a retired deputy director, Mr. Sampath from Trichy Corporation, and we did not know the proper channel to address these departments. With his help we were able to do many things, and I also want to address that we were able to see the visible implementation stages that happened in developing a stormwater drain.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
There are, I think, a lot more questions, but just to address very briefly, yes, everybody has a right. These are public information. We all have a right to see the budget, the allocations, track what is happening in the work order versus what's happening on the ground. It is definitely there. If it's not out publicly, they're supposed to be proactively disclosed. If not, there is also RTI. Again, afternoon we have a session on RTI by Arapur Yakam. So please do join that. And I will just ask, this is the final thing, we are running out of time, sorry. Maybe Vachana can just briefly answer about data, and then Kayalvizhi ma'am can address his question on the ward bit.
Yeah, I just want to quickly respond to the gentleman's question on addressing services, right? So I think Tamil Nadu and Kerala are the only states with a local body ombudsman. So if you have actually, and Chennai has a citizens charter, which essentially would tell you which are the escalating authorities. And if you have exhausted all of those options, you can actually reach out to the local body ombudsman. So I think that's a great platform probably you could use. In Tamil Nadu, I think they are capable, they are empowered over both corruption and maladministration. In case of Kerala, it's also, services are also included in that. On data, sorry, what was the question on data?
I think you're talking about proactive disclosure of finding information on the there is no budget.
Okay.
Sure. So this, how does it get devolved down to the multiple levels? Yeah.
So that's
First time I'm understanding that we can, as a resident or a
Absolutely.
we can go and view the budget.
Yeah.
How to do that?
Yeah, it's actually in most cases these budgets are uploaded. Now actually most of the, at least city corporation websites are updated on a regular basis. So once a budget is approved by the council, it is made available on the website. The challenge is what level granularity of information as to how much money gets allocated to the ward. So what level budget unfortunately is not made available. Pune made some steps but it hasn't reached anywhere. In a lot of cases, civil society organizations step in to provide that information. That's yeah, so I would...
Yeah. I think all of this we will cover in the afternoon sessions, and I will just leave the... Okay, very briefly maybe.
So for the ward budget, what we did was we actually filed for RTIs as an organization. So we regularly file RTIs. So by now we know how to appeal as well. If they are denying the answer, we know how to appeal. So that is one of the things that citizens need to crack, that, you know, even if they are denying information, how do you appeal again for the RTI and to which authority? The other thing is that the public meetings, the minutes of the meetings, you should check in your Municipal Corporation Act if it's open for public. That is one. The other thing in your act that you need to check is what are the obligatory duties mentioned in your Municipal Corporation Act. And you can also take the municipal corporation to the court if they are not providing you the obligatory duties. So these are the two things I would like to...
Thank you, Pratiksha. So maybe, ma'am, you can just talk about how you engage with the Sabha. What's about?
Sir, from 101 Chennai Nagar. Yeah. Sir, நீங்கள் கேட்டிருந்தீங்க ஏரியா சபா வந்து எப்பப்போ நடக்குதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. That's supposed to be happen every 3 months once, 4 times a year. So அது பார்த்தீங்களானா லைக் அண்ணாஸ் பர்த்டே, அம்பேத்கர்ஸ் பர்த்டே அண்ட் ரிபப்ளிக் டே. ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி உங்கள் கவுன்சிலர்கிட்ட கேட்டிங்களானாவே தட் டேட்டா வில் பி கொடுப்பாங்க எந்தெந்த இதுலன்னு சொல்லிட்டு, எந்தெந்த டேட்டில் வருதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. அப்போது தட் and that day the councillor supposed to arrange area sabha along with the public. இப்போ area sabhaன்னு சொல்கிறது வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் எல்லாம் என்று honorable CM சொல்லியிருக்கிறப்பது போல் 5 people from political side and 5 people from resident welfare association side. So இந்த 10 members, they are the people who come and attend the area sabha. என்னென்ன அவங்களோட ஏரியாவில் என்னென்ன இஷ்யூஸ் இருக்கிறதுன்றதை தென் தே வில் டிஸ்கஸ் இட் இன் தட் ஏரியா சபா. ஸோ அதில் வந்து வி வில் டேக் டெசிஷன் இஃப் லைக் இன்ஃப்ராஸ்ட்ரக்சர் ரோடு இல்லையா, இல்லை ட்ரைனேஜ் இஷ்யூவா, வாட் எவர் த பேசிக் அம்யூனிட்டிஸ் இல்லையா. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிறவங்க வந்து தென் வி வில் மேக் இட், வி வில் டிஸ்கஸ் அண்ட் ஃப்ரம் தேர் வி வில் மேக் அ ஸ்பெஷல் ரெசல்யூஷன் த்ரூ தட் இஃப் கவர்மெண்ட்டில் வந்து ஃபண்ட் அலோகேஷன் அதுக்கு வந்து கொடுத்து அதை இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணுவோம். இஃப் தெர் இஸ் நோ லைக் இப்போ ஒரு சின்ன குறுக்கு சந்து ரோடெல்லாம் எடுத்துக்கோங்க. இப்போ என்னோடய டிவிஷனில் பார்த்தீங்களான்னா பிள்ளையார் கோவில் சந்துன்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு பிள்ளையார் கோவில் தெருன்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருக்குது. ஸோ அங்கே பார்த்தீங்களான்னா ஒரு 5 ரோடு இருக்குது. 5 ரோடில் வெரி அன்ஈவன் பாத். இட்ஸ் வெரி சேலஞ்சிங் ஃபார் த பப்ளிக் டு வாக். பிகாஸ் அந்த ரோட்டில் தான் வந்து ஆக்சஸ் பண்ணுறது. சில்ட்ரன்ஸ் எல்லாம் வந்து ஸ்கூலுக்கு வரணும், எடல்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் சீனியர் சிட்டிசன்ஸ், ஹாஸ்பிட்டலைசேஷன், மொபிலைசேஷன் எல்லாமே அந்த ரோட்டில் தான். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும்போது இட்ஸ் வெரி சோர் டு ஐஸ் டு சீ தேர் வாக்கிங் அண்ட் ஆல். ஸோ அப்போது நம்ம கார்பரேஷன் அஃபீஷியல்ஸ் கிட்ட கேட்கும்போது, இல்லை இது வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் ரோட் வாரியரிஸ்டில் வந்து ரோடு இல்லை மேம் சொல்லி சொன்னாங்க. வேர் தேர் இஸ் கவர்மெண்ட் ஃபண்ட் வந்து அலோகேட் பண்ண முடியல அப்படின்னு சொன்னால் த பப்ளிக் ரெப்ரசன்டேட்டிவ் ஃபண்ட் கேன் பி அலோகேட்டட் ஃபார் த பப்ளிக். ஸோ இன் தட் வே I laid that road, 5 roads, almost 6 roads I laid from that. இப்போ தான் வந்து 60 lakhs ஆயிருக்குது. Before when I came as a councillor, that time it was only 30 lakh. So இந்த மாதிரி basic infrastructures that councillors fund can be used. And another challenge, one more இது எனக்கு கூட பண்ணியிருக்கேன். ஒரு you all might have knows about it, this கலாக்ஷேத்ரா ரோடு ஒரு 70 years encroachmentல இருந்த ரோடு. அது வந்து ஒரு ஃபிஷர்மேன் கம்யூனிட்டி வில்லேஜ். அவங்க வந்து சுற்றி வர்றதுனா எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஹாஸ்பிட்டல், ஸ்கூல், காலேஜ் எல்லாத்துக்குமே பிஸ்னஸ். ஸோ 2.5 kilometers அவங்க வந்து வரணும். பட் இந்த ரோடு வந்து இட்ஸ் வெரி ஷார்ட்கட். ஸோ பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் த கிளைமேட்டிக் கண்டிஷன் very unpredictable. எப்போ வந்து சுனாமி வருது என்ன எது வருதுன்னே சொல்லி தெரியாது. So for almost there are some 2,500 people are living in that fishing hamlet, that local fisher folks. So அவங்களுக்கு வந்து ரோடு accessibility கிடையாது. So what I did, இது வந்து encroachmentல இருந்தது இந்த ரோடு. They were restricting the public to go in that road. So I got the code direction and laid that road from the councillor fund. I made it as a public. Now the publics are so happy to travel in that road. So
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this. So, no, I think we're really out of time. I'm very sorry. No, let's take this on a week. Okay, it should be on a weekend. So, understand. So, let me, I think we will have to come to an end. I hope we'll continue the conversation in the next sessions and over lunch as well. But I just request my fellow trustee and urban expert Ashwin Mahesh to just synthesize these points and like kind of set the direction forward for the next few sessions.
So, when I listen to all of these things, I'm reminded of some things. சில பேர் வந்து, if you ask them, what does your son or daughter do? காலேஜில் படிக்கிறாங்க, வேறு ஏதாவது பண்ணுறானா, இல்லை அப்பப்போ கிட்டார் கற்றுப்பான். பட் சாதாரணமாக when people ask, what does your son or daughter do, you will say, காலேஜ் படிக்கிறான். You will not respond first by saying கிட்டார் கற்றுக்கிறான். Right? And because both are true. காலேஜ்லேயும் படிக்கிறான், கிட்டாரும் கற்றுக்கிறான். But the thing is, hopefully, majority of the time he is studying in college and minority of the time he is learning guitar, by and large. Why I am saying this is, all of us do many of these things once in a while. When there is an issue, we know what to do. The question is, what to do when there is no issue? That is, when you do not spot an issue, when you do not have a particular grievance that you are taking to your councillor or to other people, that because the people who have influence in the system have answered that question. This is the reality. The majority of the time, the people who have influence in the system are devoting significant amounts of their time to influencing the system. Now we can say, எனக்கு வேலை இருக்கு, பொண்டாடி இருக்கா, பசங்க இருக்காங்க, therefore I cannot do all of those kinds of things. They also by and large have that. I mean, some of those guys seem like they don't have any job, but by and large a lot of people do have these things. So I want you to think about this thing, that how can we I will come. No, I'm not saying, even in this crowd there is a difficulty. The difficulty is, we assume that the problems are technical and managerial. There isn't a fund allocation. There is a poorly laid design. Some pipe is leaking, whatever. But if somebody comes to you and say, எனக்கு வந்து இந்த ஏரியாவில் இருக்கிறதுக்கு வசதியே இல்லை, ஒரு வீடு வேணும், there is no easy way to resolve that. There's no easy way to resolve problems that have been created by exclusion at many other levels. The civic, I feel civic cannot be technical and managerial. It is not a question of, in the pipes area and the electricity that thing can go on. I feel we have designed our systems for efficiency rather than for accountability. We have designed, and we are saying efficient panna porom, if it is incidentally exclusive adu yarum paakradhu kediyadu. Fundamental problem in the city is that it is exclusive, it is becoming more and more exclusive to large numbers of people. ஏழப்பட்டவங்க வந்து ஊரில் இருக்க முடியாமல், they are staying outside the city and commuting to work. People like you and I living in the city are saying traffic ரொம்ப பெருசாயிடுது. Right? If ஒரு வார்டு கமிட்டி கூப்பிட்டு, இந்த வார்டில் ஒரு 15% of land should be reserved for poor people to have their housing, let us identify the 15% ஒரு மீட்டிங் வச்சு பாருங்களேன். எத்தனை பேர் வந்து 15% இங்கே தான் இருக்கணும்னு சொல்கிறதுக்கு வர்றாங்க. That's also an issue. The assumption that civic issues are important and that they are more important than some of these other issues that you and I never face is at the heart of why our civic issues are not getting addressed. The politicians, the people who have influence in the system, they know this. They know this. Pushed into a corner, pushed into a transparent conversation about equity, the same people who talk about civics will back off. If we don't change this, then our civic interventions will always be going around in circles. அவளுக்கே தெரியும், ஒரு 4 வாட்டி வருவார். இன்ஃபேக்ட் ஒன் கை டோல்ட் மீ, சார் யாராவது வந்து ஒரு நாளைக்கு 1000 பேர் வந்து ஏதாவது கேட்பாங்க. So I really don't have to devise a system for dealing with this thing. My system is very simple. இல்லைன்னு சொன்னால் நாளைக்கு வருவாரா? If I think நாளைக்கு வருவார், அவர் வேலை இன்றைக்கே பண்ணிவிடுவேன். So in a sense, the political system has designed itself, the administrative system, the political system has designed itself to respond to what it knows are fault lines in society. Civics is not about knowing how to solve the problem. Civics is about being able to enable and support the gifts and talents of other people that live around us, to see other people as human beings who are worthy of some consideration as in an inclusion in our society. So unfortunately, now over 15, 20 years of doing all these things, I've gone to thousands of these kinds of sessions. Somehow or the other, the civics of our cities is not moving in this direction. And as long as we don't move in this direction, I feel we'll just keep going around in circles. So my observation is not that, some grievance redress system. I remember building the first grievance redress system at eGov's Foundation many years ago when I was a director at eGov. So the easiest part of it was to build it. Today also the standard eGovernment system, PGR system, will not put its own data in public. What does resolved mean? What does resolved mean? 97% of what they are calling resolved is not resolved. Everybody knows it's not resolved. But it is resolved. And in fact, it reminds me of this Yes Minister serial, where there is a hospital. And they say they win the award for this cleanest hospital in the country. And they say, oh, very good. There are no patients. Right? So the minister comes and asks, sir, the patient equipment it will last much longer. The patients on the other equipment use kind of thing. So you can tell your system, you can measure your system by anything that you want. I feel civic measures are fundamentally incomplete because they are not anchored in mutual regard for each other as people. Somehow, it's very easy to point this out. Somehow we have to overcome that. And I feel like in all civic measures, we have to keep reminding ourselves that and say, that's the conversation we really need to have. I don't know how you can do it. Many of you are in professional jobs that relate to civic issues in a professional way. It's not, the professional has to follow the human. And we are leading too often with the professional and thinking that we are going to get to human outcomes from that. I don't think that will happen.
Thank you.